Most of us were never taught how to talk about what we actually want in our bodies, in our relationships, or even in our erotic lives. So our next guest, Megan AnneStasia, is changing that one uncomfortable conversation at a time. We're so excited to speak with her about how to listen more deeply to what your body's telling you. So I'm Dr. Willow Brown. I'm here with Leah Piper. We are Sex Reimagined, and we're so grateful for all your attention, your likes, your shares, your subscribes.
You know, what's really fun about today's episode is we've got three homies that have spent years and years in Santa Cruz, California. And it is where I met both of these beauties. So I'm excited to feel that California vibe again on the show today. So please tune in, turn on, and fall in love with my very dearest girlfriend who now lives in Sacramento near me.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were just talking before we came on about some of your training. And one of the things that is out there that has done so much amazing good in the world around sexuality, helping people, is the sexual Somatica method that Danielle and Celeste gave birth to many, many, many years ago in the San Francisco area. And I've been wanting to have a specialist in that work for a long time on the show. So can you share with us what the Somatica method is?
Yes, absolutely. So the Somatica method is, well, it's two things. It is a sex and relationship coaching training. And there's also a pathway for personal growth and development in that training. In my coaching practice using the Somatica method, I invite people into what we call the relationship lab, where clients can practice some of the tools and skills around both emotional and erotic intimacy together in the room. If you talk to a traditional sex therapist, they're going to be doing more talk-based therapy and interventions, maybe sending you home with some worksheets or practices to do at home. But when you come into the office with me, whether you are coupled or an individual, single, I'm going to facilitate some real-time practices. And I might invite you to tune into your body sensations. I might invite you to tune into your breath and bring up erotic energy. We might be talking about fantasies, desires, how to communicate those more effectively to your partner. And we might also be practicing around consent, boundaries, around seduction. Like, how do you really want to be seduced? What would invite you into that erotic space to begin with? And that's where a lot of people kind of lose the spark because they don't know how to have those conversations. They don't have the framework to talk about sex in that way. And for individuals who are navigating around confidence and dating, it can be really helpful because you get hands-on practical experience.
I feel like just opening up the conversation starts to open up more ideas too for people. Like when they are in a safe place where they're like, wow, I can tell you what my fantasies are. Wow, I can tell you what I actually desire. And you're not going to like react in some crazy, scary way that I've been afraid of my whole life. It actually allows them, because so many of us, we don't know what we want. You know, we don't know what we desire, much less how to talk about it. But just opening up the space to be able to have a little conversation then gives way for more imagination, more possibility. And I imagine too, Megan, that, you know, when you're talking with clients and you're kind of inviting them and coaxing them along and potentially maybe even giving them some ideas. So.
Yes, absolutely. You know, so many people that come to see me, they just want to know that they're normal.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll, you know, when they finally are able to share those fantasies and desires with me, there's a feeling of like, oh, now I kind of feel weird, or I kind of feel like a freak. Like, you know, is this normal? And that's, you know, one of the questions I get a lot, is this normal? And I'm like, yes, it's great. Like, first of all, I don't know what normal is because I don't think that any of us are normal. Whatever that is, like, chuck the idea of normal out the window. Like, there's something that turns you on. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. Let's celebrate it and let's see all the different ways that you might like to get it in your life. And sometimes it's just running the fantasy in your head. Sometimes there are fantasies that you don't actually want to do. You just want to have permission to
Think
have
about
that fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes. And people feel guilty about that too. Like, oh, I kind of have to run this fantasy in my head to have an orgasm. Awesome.
Great.
Use it.
Use it. Yeah. There's so it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is just like shedding layers of guilt and shame, right? Just permissioning.
Absolutely.
You're a
Permissioning.
permissionist.
I am a walking, talking permission slip.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's really cute. I'll say you gave me a permission slip when you shared with me what core erotic desires are. And then that led me on like a whole rabbit hole of discovery regarding, core erotic themes is what I was.
Core erotic theme. Yeah.
And I still get that feeling. Like just a couple weeks ago, Willow and I were teaching in Santa Barbara, and I brought up core erotic themes. And I was like, I'm going to confess that one of my core erotic themes that I've had a lot of shame about, that I keep like exposing the shame monster every time I share what some of these core erotic themes are out loud. And so I do practice saying them in front of an audience. I do practice, mentioning it on a podcast episode. And that is like stranger danger. There is an erotic part of my mind that gets turned on by some inappropriate themes that like are, I think the language is hot sexual movies. So could you share a little bit about what core erotic themes are and how you might use them in your work?
Sure. Okay. So the term core erotic theme was coined by, I believe he's a psychologist, Jack Morin. I learned about it through the book. Oh my gosh, what is the book name? It's going to come to me in a second.
You wrote The Erotic Mind.
The Erotic Mind. Thank you. Thank you. I could see it, but I couldn't see the words. Yes, The Erotic Mind. So the core erotic theme, if you think about your fantasies, your hottest sexual experiences, the things that really turn you on, you will start to notice some common threads that run through those fantasies, experiences, and desires. And we're getting to like the core emotional need. What I really appreciate about Celeste and Danielle's work, the creators of the Somatica method, is they have really correlated these core desires to your core wounds or survival strategies. And so that's really fascinating in the context of, working with people and how you move through the world. So knowing what turns you on sexually is kind of a sneak peek into how you operate as a human, really, or how you operate in times of stress or anxiety. So, yeah, we grow up in a context and some things get wired in to our nervous systems, and then we start fantasizing. I'll take one of the parts of my core erotic theme is to be celebrated for my sluttiness. And the way that I define sluttiness is not necessarily about how many people you sleep with, but like how much you enjoy it, right? How much you want it, as a woman, how much you want it, how much you need it, how much you love being a sexual person. And so growing up Catholic, it was absolutely a no-no to be a slut. It was one of the most shameful things that you could be. And so, and at the same time growing up, I was always really connected to my sensuality, and I figured out how to have an orgasm quite young, and was repenting because God was always watching. Turns out I'm also quite an exhibitionist.
Do you like it when God watches then, huh? Turns you on, your slut gets a little extra kick in the pants.
So the core erotic theme is like, I like to be seen for my sluttiness. And celebrated for my sluttiness. Now, some people, the shame that gets wired in, right? The guilt and the shame feeling, that might be part of the core erotic theme. For me, it is not. I don't like to feel the guilt and the shame. I want to have a reparative experience in the bedroom where I am worshipped for my sluttiness, where it's the thing that you love and desire the most about me. So you can call me a dirty little slut, but you have to say it in a way that is so celebratory. If there is a hint of degradation or humiliation attached to it, I'm instantly turned off. But for some people, they want that, right? Like the feeling of guilt and shame fused in with it is the thing that would turn you on. So, it's just, we all play it out in different ways. The bedroom is a place to, play and work out some of these themes. So it can be a really, really healing space to explore.
So I want to dive in and get a little bit more specific about what you said around, the core erotic themes and people's protective patterns being a pair. So could you pull one out and give us an example of like how these might show up for somebody?
Yeah, sure. I'll just use myself as an example. Also, some of my themes are anchored around freedom, variety, exploration. And for me, growing up in a very Catholic context, also in a military family, there was not a lot of freedom to be an autonomous person. My actions, first of all, I grew up wearing uniforms. Um, so, you had to look the
No
same, you
freedom
had
of
to behave.
expression.
No, right. And so, and some of my core protective strategies also are, really centered around freedom and autonomy. And that can get expressed in different ways. Sometimes it gets expressed as rebellion, and sometimes it gets expressed as kind of enduring or taking it on, because I learned how to do that when I was young. I can endure a situation.
So enduring is a protective strategy for you. It's like when things get overwhelming to your nervous system, when you start to feel like I'm not safe, you go into a pattern of like, let me hunker down, take this all in, process it inside of myself, endure, endure, endure. And now draw the line for me into the erotic theme from there.
Yeah. So in the erotic space, someone with these themes might want to endure in the bedroom.
Okay, like give it to me hard, or I want it firm, or like choke me, or whatever, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like do whatever you want to my body. I can
Endure
take whatever you're
physical,
pushing out.
or even
Mhm.
sometimes maybe endure even more psychological.
Yes. So BDSM can be a space to really play with this enduring theme.
Interesting.
Being a brat might be a place where you might want to play with the theme of autonomy, like fighting back, saying no.
There's also
Yeah.
like
Or
withdrawal or where you take orgasm away. A lot of edging could be seen as enduring. Like how long can you
How
stay
much
on
pleasure
edge?
can you
Brutal.
take? Uh-huh.
yes.
Forced orgasm could be another part of the enduring playground.
Yes. Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
really
And so some of the other themes are really anchored around safety. People that want to feel really safe in sex might really love an energetic connection to sex. They might want to explore around tantra, eye gazing, practices where you're circulating energy between each other, playing in the space of like, how much can I feel without touching you? Inhaling and exhaling with each other, like circulating breath. And there is some safety too in having some ritual. So Tantra and Taoist practices, offer a space where you have a whole ritual around connection. And that can really be inviting for people who have themes of safety. Some people have themes of control, wanting to be powerful, wanting to have control. And some people might have themes around like connection, boundaries dissolving, or maybe not having to be responsible for all of their person's pleasure, where they get let off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, I think too, like some people, their nervous system gets super flooded with certain kinds of sexual energy that's coming at them, whether it's because it feels too fast and then they can like get flooded and they kind of fall apart, or they can go away. Can you speak a little bit to that? People who tend to be pretty disassociative when it comes to sexuality and how much you might help them?
Yes. So I would move really, really slow. I would want to see if they are kind of like, at what point are you leaving or checking out? Is it at the mention of sex, right? Like, are there certain words even? And this is just going to be really slow, titrated work, moving in and out of connection in a really slow way, right? We might do some practices around eye contact and just being here in the room with me, right? Like it's okay to take a break and look around, and it's okay to come back and meet my eyes, right? So even just taking little sips in of the connection between us, that's a relational exercise that we might do. I might move into some more trauma-focused work if dissociation is present. We might do some brain spotting around that. I'm a brain spotting practitioner, so sometimes I'm doing more trauma-focused sessions.
What is brain spotting for people who've never heard of that?
Yes. Brain spotting is a type of trauma therapy that is an offshoot of EMDR. And for those who aren't familiar with EMDR, it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It has to do with bilateral stimulation and kind of connecting the hemispheres of the brain. David Grand, who discovered brain spotting, found that he was doing an EMDR session with his client and detected an eye wobble and intuitively just stopped on the point and had his client process from that fixed point, which is totally outside of the protocol of the EMDR protocol. Mm-hmm. So we use eye position to access the deeper parts of the brain where trauma is actually stored. It bypasses this thinking part of the brain. Talk therapy is not great for processing trauma. I've personally tried to process trauma through cognitive behavioral therapy, and each time just walked out of the room more flooded, more aggravated, more upset.
You're just reliving the trauma. Yeah.
Exactly. Talking about it. The great thing about brain spotting is you don't have to even talk when you're processing. I don't need to know as the practitioner what's coming up. But your body does go through a process, whether it's processing memories, thoughts, feelings. Sometimes people have a somatic process, sweating, shaking, crying.
Laughter.
Yeah. Yes. And so at the end of a session or at the end of a series of sessions, you kind of like come into more regulation around whatever it is that we're targeting.
Okay, so I've got like kind of a slew of young men. I mean, they're 30, anywhere between 35 and 40, who are coming through, and they are in this position where they've never been in a relationship. They've hooked up with people before, but they don't know how to like carry it forward and hold the masculine pole and like really like show up in that stronger masculinity. And we were just doing another interesting podcast interview about hormones and like how so many men are actually starting to convert their testosterone to estrogen. So that's another topic. But I'm curious for you, like within the work you're doing, and specifically with the somatic method, what would you do with one of these men who's like, I want to have a relationship, I just am not sure. I don't know what I'm doing sexually. I don't know what I'm doing relationally. I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to hold this or do
I don't know how to flirt.
Yeah.
I don't know how to date. I don't know how to initiate a French kiss.
Just or confident at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I work with a lot of these men, and they are, I hold them so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
They are the good guys. Totally. They are good men, and they really hold back because they don't want to be that creep.
Yeah.
And they are the guy that's not getting the girl because, many times they have completely divorced themselves from their desire, from their cock, they can't even feel it down there anymore because it's like not a safe place to live. Yeah. And so, one of the things is just having, establishing that connection with the body, getting back in touch with your penis as an erotic, alive part of you.
Changing the narrative that it's not dangerous, it's precious, and kind of reworking the story they have to their penis.
Yes, and like your desire is welcome. If we're on a date, if I'm on a date with you, I have some interest in you, right? And so we get into this kind of practice scenario, right? Like I'll meet with my clients for the first time and they're terrified and maybe a little attracted. And I'm like, oh, great. you're attracted. Let's use it. Come on, feel it. Just allow yourself to feel it. How does it feel to be attracted to me? And I'm just here with you. There might be a few sessions like that, like just welcoming their attraction into the room. That's a lot. We do a
What's
lot.
like for you? Like,
What's that?
what is that like for you? You have a guy who you may not be attracted to. You're making it safe for them to feel their attraction. So I guess I'm so curious, like, what's their body doing? I can imagine this like really sweet, bashful smile and like, but I also imagine a lot of awkwardness.
There is a lot of awkwardness, and I totally embrace it and welcome it. Get your awkward out here,
Yeah.
where the stakes are low and there's low pressure. I work with a lot of men who haven't dated, and they're in their 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. They haven't really had a lot of experience dating. So I'm like, all right, let's get into this practice date. Like, let's go, each meeting with me, think of it like a date. I'm also nervous. I don't know you. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, as a professional, I'm tracking a lot of things and I know where we could go, but the interpersonal stuff, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. What am I going to share with you? What am I ready to share with you? How safe are you? I'm feeling all of that out as well. So it's a really organic process in that way. Like, I might share things about myself if it's in service to my client, but I have to also feel safe in the container. So we're building mutual safety and trust. And with these men, I do a lot of work around navigating consent and boundaries. They usually really need to know that they're not going to hurt me, that I'm going to take care of myself. And so I am modeling in real time how I do take care of myself. And a lot of times these are the men who need a lot of green flags, like obviously waving, like, hey, I'm into you, like I would be open to you sharing your desire with me. I want you to check me out, right? Again, if I'm on a date with you, I have already some level of interest. It's okay to check me out, right? If we're having coffee together, like allow yourself to, check, like look at my body and then come back to my eyes, right? So we're working a lot around like connected objectification. See me as a sexual object, but not in a way that's to use, in a way that's like, hi, I'm here with you.
And
I'm
I'm
here to get to know
attracted to you.
you.
I mean, I feel like this
Yeah.
is such a thing that's, I don't know. I've lived in California my whole life, so there's a lot of California men around, right? And I feel like I am going to generalize. It's just there's this lack of like feeling them. Like I can't feel you over here, right? And so I'm always helping these particular men in this particular genre, like step more into like lean more into the side of like you're going to harm me or hurt me or like objectify me or something too much because like you're so far on the other side of the spectrum that like I can't feel you at all. So I want you to lean over this side and lean as far as you can. You'll probably land somewhere perfect because a woman wants to feel desired. She wants to feel like you got her. She wants to feel the strength of you, like not just your physicality but your energetic body as well, that she can lean into you, that she can, I mean, that's what builds trust, which is what sexy is.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because we've also had experiences where we felt goobered, like
Totally.
someone just comes in and it's like, oh, like you're turning it on way too strong. And so I imagine that these same guys are the idea of having someone have that reaction to them is so frightening
Yes.
that they just keep their
Yeah.
desire bottled up and suppressed. And so it's a really fine line because I kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, but I imagine that a high percentage of these men are neurodivergent, which would mean that they have a hard time reading facial cues and body language and sarcasm and, other things that other people who are not neurodivergent take for granted. They're not always as socially adept. So it's even more frightening to take those risks. I do think that that's a different than who you're talking about, Willow, however, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be qualified to diagnose anyone in that way. I do know that some of my clients come in with a known, maybe on the spectrum or something like that diagnosis. And sometimes it feels fairly obvious to me that that's what's happening. And so there's a level of just being really direct. And, that can be really necessary. And if you are dating someone on the spectrum, right, it's like, just give them, I have a green light for you, just really obvious. I would like to kiss you now. Do you want to kiss me? Right? Like that works really well. And for anyone, right? Like, how do we navigate? Consent is a big conversation, right? Like there's a lot of ideas about whether we need to get explicit, enthusiastic yeses and nos, or some people just want to, don't want to spoil the moment with all that talk and want you to read the body language in the moment. Like if you're on a, date and there's a lull and he's giving you the eye, that might be the moment. And for a lot of the men that, I see, maybe they need the explicit consent, because I think a lot of times they frame it in terms of she needs to give a yes or no for her, but like I'm empowering them to have a conversation about, well, what do you need to move forward? It's okay if you need to check in verbally a lot in the beginning so that you get those clear green lights. That is okay if you need that. But then do that.
I feel like I sometimes am coaching men to not ask so many, is this okay? Is that okay? Can I do this? Can I do that? Because that's not hot. That's not sexy. It's not confident. Right. So just, I'm sure that's not what you're telling them to do, but give the distinction.
Well, here is where I want to really normalize having consent conversations on dates. Talk about what consent style you prefer. Have that conversation. Hey, are you somebody that wants, a verbal check-in at every escalation? Are you someone who wants me to read your body language? What would that look like if you were a yes, right? What does that look like for you? Help me learn about you and what style you would prefer. I've actually had great success with this on dates. Talking, it's like having the meta conversation, right? The conversation before the conversation. Yeah. And it's kind of a nerdy thing to do. But the times that I have done it, particularly with men, they have been so relieved. Like, oh, you don't want me to check in. You just want me to get that there's a look happening, and then the look happens. They're like, great, I can move in.
Okay. That's really helpful. Yeah, that's great, because then you're not only learning their style and how they like to be communicated with, but it's putting you at ease. And I feel like that's one of the biggest gifts that any gender could give the other gender, is like, here's how I operate. Here's how I prefer to be communicated with.
Yeah, I think too, that's how you help someone win with you. And I think that's so important, that we have the perspective of we're going to help each other succeed in this relating thing. So I'm going to help you crack the code of me, and we're going to keep on showing each other how we might win with each other inside and outside of the bedroom. And I really liked what you were saying about, by the way, consent isn't just about helping a woman feel safe. Consent is also about men feeling safe. And we tend to over project that this is all about women's needs. And it's really not fair. We need to kind of normalize that men also have their preferences and how they feel safe in their own consent, and can name that. You may want to ask your date, hey, when you want to hold my hand. Yeah, I've been watching but just
on Love on the Spectrum.
Love on the Spectrum.
And it was like, can we hold hands? Or on a first date, can we have a hug? Or he goes, can we have a kiss? And she goes, no, but we can have a hug. I wish it was so refreshing.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. The directness, the direct communication, does work really well for, neurodivergent people on the spectrum, but it's also just really like that. The dating coach in that show, I'm like, this is great advice for everyone. How many people have forgotten how to have like a curious conversation where they're actively listening?
Right.
Like how many times do you go on a date and the conversation is lopsided? Like, this is good dating advice for everyone, especially now that we're all in our screens, forgetting how to socialize.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And then I do think there is that high level of seduction that many of us are craving. And what Willow was saying, read me, learn about attunement, read the room, read yourself, learn about the subtlety and the nuance and the context of seduction and sexual energy. And all of that, I think, is maybe more like a high art.
I want to switch gears a little bit. I mean, I think everything you're saying, Leah, is so true. But I'm also curious. I mean, I brought up the example of the men and his, whatever age, hasn't had a relationship yet. But I want to hear also about the people who come to you who maybe have been in relationship for a long time and they're like, we're just stuck, we can't find our way to each other anymore, the intimacy is dead. What do we do?
Yes. Okay. Well, this is where, knowing about your core erotic theme can be so helpful. In long-term committed partnerships, I find that, like, let's say the couple is been married for 30 years. Chances are when they got together, they talked about a lot of things. They talked about, where do you want to live? What are your shared values? What are your hobbies and interests? Do you want to have kids? How do you want to raise them? But they probably haven't talked about, what kind of sex do you want to have? The honeymoon phase can only get you through so long. And a lot of times people make that big commitment while still high on the drugs of the honeymoon phase. And it comes crashing down when the babies come along, and that's not the main focus. And then all of a sudden you're trying to reconnect as romantic partners and you have zero framework to talk about sex. And this is why when I discovered about core erotic theme, it was like, everyone needs to know about this. Why aren't we teaching it in school? Why isn't this a part of sex education in high school and college? Why aren't people learning this in premarital counseling?
Right.
This would save a lot of relationships, because a lot of times by the time they make their way to a helping professional like me, there's a lot of resentments that have built up because they're speaking two different languages to try to connect. And so, when we know what we want to feel, like these core erotic themes or desires, then we can map out all of these different ways that you might like to have that feeling met. Celeste and Danielle call them hottest sexual movies. I like to call them seduction styles.
Oh, yeah.
And you might want to mix and match styles, right? So you might want to take a romantic pathway. Some people want that like intense, urgent, animalistic, primal, like sensation-based pathway where, this is what we see in movies. I'm going to rip off your clothes, and that can fade over time, but like there might be ways to get you back into that part of yourself. Other people might want to explore the energetic or spiritual connection through tantra practices. And then other people might want to explore power and control or submission with some kink or BDSM practices. Yeah. I'm just launching an online course right now where I guide you into learning about your core erotic theme. We map out different seduction styles, and then you can start to flesh out your own unique erotic roadmap where you can share that with your partner. And it's like, let's create a scene together. Let's do a beginning, a middle, and an end. Where I want to share what I want, and we'll break it down into touch. We'll break it down into embodied gestures, even into eye contact. Like, what is the energy of the eye contact? Maybe when we want to start out like romantic and then move into passion and then get a little kinky,
punishing or strict. Or, I can just imagine all sorts of different eye gazing. I love the nuance of that. That's genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah. The eye contact that says, I'm here with you. You're special and precious to me is different than the eye contact of, you're mine.
You're right.
I own you.
Right. Or you're in trouble.
You're in big trouble.
It's so fun because it allows your inner actor actress to come out. It's like this. You get to
Yeah, it's
play
beautiful.
in realms that you're not comfortable, that but that you're intrigued by. So it's again, it's permission. It's permission to become more of those places inside of you that have been hiding away and stuck in non-expression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also like it can help you understand what your brakes are and what your accelerators are. Because, for a long time, I don't think I would have opened or have found any arousal in someone looking like they were mad at me, like I was in trouble. But now I would get a lot of get off on that. So I think we can also kind of change, but like how wonderful to go. If you looked at me that way, I might feel threatened and turned off. I might want to press the brakes. But when you look at me this way, wow, do I want to press the accelerator? I mean, so amazing just to have the language around that right there, the kind of ways that you can express yourself emotionally through your eyes that
Mhm.
can bring so much turn on to the system. I mean, you just up leveled for me. I hadn't put this together yet. I can't wait to like teach another eye casing masterclass to kind of really bring in this whole other way of communicating through the eyes because it is such a rich place of discovery and intimacy and communicating that's nonverbal that can say so much.
Yeah, I mean, this is like kind of the essence of energy work. And for those of you who are not woo-woo, just think about your intention. You can send your intention and your feeling out through your eyes. You can send your intention and your presence out through your hands, right? So even people who don't consider themselves like woo energy, just think of it as presence, bringing your presence all the way down into your hands, bringing your presence all the way down into your genitals,
Mm-hmm.
bringing your presence and shining it out your heart, right? Connecting from that space. Like
Yeah,
just
totally.
being all the way in your body and connecting from that space.
Yeah.
Well, this word attunement is thrown around on this podcast quite a lot, and it's really you are then attuning to a place inside of you. You're paying attention to a place of desire inside of you, and you're bringing that desire to the table. Like you're bringing it to the experience and to that person. Then, no matter what, they're going to be able to feel you, whether they like the feeling or not. That is to be determined. But like, I feel like this is such a huge piece of what happens in long-term relationships is they just don't feel each other anymore. Like literally can't feel
Yeah.
each other probably because they both squelch their own desires because they think the other one's going to judge them for it.
Right. Old stories get built up
Yeah.
and we make up our mind about who our partner is, and then we don't leave any room for change. It can be so painful. Matt and I just had a little connect this past weekend, and we had to have a lot of hard conversations. We had planned a date to have sex, and then there was a lot of things that were in the way. And it was hard. It was hard to get through some of those conversations. We both got defensive a few times, but the lovemaking that happened afterward was so much sweeter. And then the sweetness continued for so much longer afterward. I think we communicate with our whole body and with our words. We got to figure out how that all works. And it's not something that we're taught. Like,
No.
flat out, just the nuts and bolts of it isn't something that's discussed unless you see somebody like Megan.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us a little bit more about your program that you're going to be launching soon because it sounds great.
Yes. So my online course is called Embodied Intimacy. And, as I said, we'll talk a lot about psychological turn-ons and how you might like to get to that feeling. I also break down from my 20 years of experience as a body worker, a lot of touch skills. There's a lot of different pathways. We'll break it down, the feelings that you want to have and how to express those. And also just like, here are different types of touch. We'll break it down step by step by step, and then you can feel in the sensation realm what turns you on in terms of sensation. And then, I'm also available for one-on-one coaching. So if you decide to get the online course and move through that at your own pace in the privacy of your own home, and you want more one-on-one support,
And do you
feel free
do
to reach out.
sessions on Zoom as well as in person, like for people who are at a
I
distance?
do, yeah. I worked exclusively on Zoom for a couple years during the pandemic. And
Yeah.
even though I was very surprised at how much can be accomplished online, even though
Yeah.
this is, relational embodiment work.
Mhm.
There's a lot that can happen online. So that can be a great effective tool if you live somewhere far from me.
Love it.
So we are going to have 3 links in the show notes that you're definitely going to want to look at. And the show notes are on our website. And the link will always be in the show notes on whichever app you are tuning in. One of these links is going to be to Megan's free gift, which is discovering how to find your own core erotic theme. And then we will have another link for her course. And then we'll have a link for a free discovery call in case you would like to work one-on-one with Megan. So with that, thank you so much. This was such an enlightening episode.
Fantastic conversation. Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, friends, the show's not over. Please stay tuned because we're going to dish it out.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Well, thanks for bringing your girlfriend Megan to the show. What a delight. I've never met her in Santa
I
Cruz
know.
before.
I can't believe that you and Megan and Rochelle, I mean, we all lived in Santa Cruz at the same time.
Yeah. What the
And
heck?
one of her best friends is Lucia, and Lucia is one of your best friends. So
Oh,
it's just
that's
crazy that this is the
crazy.
first time the paths are crossing.
There you go. Wild, wild world that we live in. Well, what a cool conversation. I got so much out of it. I know both of us had like sparks flying and ahas going and wow, this is good fodder for all the sort of systems that we hold in our work, to kind of just more cross-referencing so that we can help people become more whole.
Yeah. I was thinking about my core erotic themes and like sort of the scenes, that are really private, that are
Yeah.
just ways that I get turned on. I have this, with the whole idea of stranger danger, I have this like fantasy and it's the old Wild West. Old digging days, And so it's somewhere in some dirty town with mud streets and the whole 9 yards, and I'm an old prostitute.
Okay.
And these 2 men take me roughly in a dirty alley. And, like, I don't know why that level of intensity is interesting in that version of my stranger danger. But then I have something that I can act out with Matt, which is another layer. And it's hard to talk about these things. Like, it's hard to admit that
Yeah.
I kind of like that very transgressive. I would never want to find myself in a dirty alley with 2 dangerous people, like in
Right.
real life at all. Like, that would not be that would be very traumatic
That
for
would
me.
not turn you on. No.
No, but in my head, something else happens. And then, like, there's this thing sometimes that I like to do where I wear like white panties and like a print little dress that comes just above the knees. It's cottony. And to have Matt like flip up the skirt to look at my panties, and like, oh, no, you can't do that. And then to see my crotch and the underwear is kind of getting wet. And then to take his finger and move the panties aside. So the underwear could not come off
Okay.
at all during any
Okay.
of the play.
Okay.
But
That's like,
it's used as a prop.
yeah.
There's so much Eros in that for
There's
me.
so much anticipation and like, you can
Naughty
look,
cat.
but don't look. Yeah.
Inappropriate, virginal, I have to pretend that I am so pious, it's really, so that I feel like and I'm so glad that the core erotic theme came up in the conversation. I didn't even realize that was Megan's free gift until I glanced at it as the episode was coming to a close. So I thought that was really fun. And I can't tell you the freedom of recognizing that there's a stranger danger element that opens me. And we could sit here for an hour and I could tell you why I think that is. We kind of take a look at the threads that got planted
Deeper. Yeah.
But regardless from that, like, oh my God, I've got access to part of my erotic nature. And yes, it's hard to admit. It's hard to talk about. I worry that people are going to judge me when I describe the few things that I've described. I don't want to be judged. Like she said, I want to be celebrated as a slut. Like, yeah, I do too.
Totally.
I'm just so delighted by that.
Yeah. So great. The permission to just explore more and to play out more. And no matter where you're at, like no matter what level you're at, if you're coming in and you're like, I've never been in a relationship, I don't know what I'm doing. Or if you're like, I'm coming in and I own my inner porn star and I want to play this other thing out, but I'm totally nervous about that. It's like there's always an edge. There's always
Right.
somewhere to take yourself further. So there's no limit. That's why tantra, it's like an expansion that keeps expanding. And I mean, for me, I always look at everything through that more spiritual lens. Not everyone does that. I get that. And that's fine. But for me, it's like, well, if I'm going to push my edge in some kinky scene or some BDSM realm or whatever, because I've already like run the gamut through Tantra land and like that whole thing is so comfortable and so easy for me, then I'm going to push my edge into something that's like, oh my God, I did that. Oh my God, I felt that. Oh my God, I elicited that experience in another. Wow, proud of myself. Like I then step into more confidence because I have a new experience and a new sensation. It's just like, for some people, it's, jumping off out of an airplane with a, hang gliding or whatever. It's just, there's different things that like give people that newer edge and that newer level of like, wow, I did that. I am capable.
Brave.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
brave.
Brave.
I think, like
Totally.
what that calls forth is to be brave, to do something you're kind of scared of, and then
Yeah.
you get the reward of going, wow, I moved through that obstacle. And A, I'm okay. B,
Mhm.
I'm better than okay. C,
Yeah.
that was amazing. Like you
Yeah.
start to have all of these effects
Yeah.
happen because you were brave.
I love
And
that word. It's like living a brave life.
yeah,
Then you feel alive. You feel like you're really living. So, like, that's what we want to leave you with today. What
yes.
is one brave thing you can go out and do today? And even if you don't know the answer, just ask yourself the question because it's going to open up more possibility for you.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, please be brave and sharing in the comments maybe what one of your core erotic themes are.
We want to
We will
hear.
celebrate you also.
We will.
All right, and have a
Much
beautiful
love.
night, day, or morning.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.